I'm
There you
joking.
go.
I'm joking. But yeah, so I'm Rosie. I've been doing communities for probably about 15 years now. Originally starting out doing meetups just locally in Brighton in the UK, in my hometown. And then I moved on to, I was a tester at the time, so I created a community for software testers. And I did that. That was kind of like a side gig kind of thing. And I did that for like 3 years as a fun kind of side gig, making a bit of money here and there, but nothing really significant. But then I kind of decided to turn that into business, and that we called it Ministry of Testing. And I basically ended up working on that for about 10 years, and I built it into like a global community for software testers. We did conferences worldwide, and we did a lot of stuff online as well. So that was indie hacked, I guess I would call it now, or bootstrapped, whatever way you want to call it. But and I still own it. I still own or co-own the company, but I stepped back from that 2.5 years ago now. I got other people running it, and I ended up doing or leading the community for indie hackers. So that was fun, and interesting, and trying to figure out what to do with indie hackers and how to grow it and manage it. For me, like, I appreciated the experience of trying to grow a different kind of community. I think it had a lot of similarities, but just having that opportunity to dive into a completely different group of people, for me, it was just a really good experience to dive in and do that and meet new people, make new friends, like we have today. So yeah, and then more recently, I've actually, as I was doing indie hackers, I decided I kind of wanted to specialize in community building. So I started Rosieland, which was a way for me to kind of write about community building. And that started off as like a newsletter. And then I turned it into a paid newsletter. And then now I'm turning it more into a community for community builders. And then, yeah, more recently, I've joined the team at Orbit, and they kind of create software for community builders. And I've been there a couple of months. So they're a startup. They're more like a funded startup. So it's like a completely different ball game, I guess. But definitely very interesting and very much aligns with my interest of going deep, as I would say, into the world of communities. That's my intro.
Deep community experience and broad as well. You've covered a lot of ground. How is the balance of your time now? How are you splitting it between the Rosieland, Orbit, and anything else you're working on?
Yeah, it's tough. I think it's always going to be tough if it was tough when I was at Indie Hackers as well. Yeah, I mean, so I'm permanently employed. When I joined Orbit, part of the deal that I made was to ensure that I could have side gigs as I had to make sure that was like part of the employment contract. So I'm very much definitely still working on Rosieland as a side project, and it's interesting because it overlaps a lot. Like Orbit do a lot of community stuff, and I do a lot of community stuff. So now I write 2 newsletters a week about community, which is interesting and challenging, I guess, at the same time. But yeah, how do I balance it? I don't know. I just make it work. Basically, I squeeze time in.
The indie hacker way.
Yeah, wherever I can.
So for people that are thinking about starting a community, what's a good reason to start a community, and why shouldn't you do it?
Yeah. Why shouldn't you do it? I'll start with that. You shouldn't do it for the money. I'm not saying that you don't earn money, but like having money as like the primary motivator is probably the wrong idea. And I think also, you shouldn't do it if you can't see yourself doing it for 5 to 10 years. So like one of the main reasons I stepped back from Ministry of Testing was because I got bored, and I got bored like midway through like kind of like halfway through the journey. I knew I was bored and I was getting bored, and so I had to. It wasn't easy to just step away from that. So, and I kind of knew it from the early days that yes, I enjoyed testing, and I had a lot of fun serving the community and doing good things for them. But I knew like from quite early on that it wasn't like really what I guess my life calling or anything like that. But I kept on doing it because at the same time, I guess that was going back to 2007. There weren't as many opportunities going around, at least for me. So I just kind of stuck with it. But I think what I took away from it is that I would never get involved with anything ever again that I'm not truly kind of passionate about, or I can't see myself doing for the next 10 years at least. So like when I made this decision to like do Rosieland and do more community stuff, is like when I commit to that, it's me believing that I can commit to that for 10 years, I think, at least.
Once you find something you care about, a community you want to be a part of for years to come, you want to grow it, how do you get anybody else to care? How do you get people to show up?
I think for me, it's like the natural act of you caring naturally pulls people in. Yeah. So like if you care about something, you spend more time thinking about that thing than anyone else, right? You spend time thinking up new ideas or new ways of seeing things, and you're always like looking for opportunities. If you don't care about things, you just don't naturally look for those kind of things. So by that natural act of caring and kind of like the push to I guess trying to be creative with how you do things, I think that naturally pulls people in when people can see that you're actively doing things with good intentions and you care about what you're doing, then people will follow.
Yeah, it might be possible to be an apathetic SaaS founder, but I don't think it's possible to be an apathetic community leader. It's just totally the opposite of what kind of energy you need to put into it. So what kind of like ideas is kind of broad. What are some things you've seen really work to get a community engaged and get people coming in?
Yeah, good question. I think especially when you're starting, is the best thing is always to like keep things small. Like I've been doing a lot of one-on-one conversations and small group, like maybe 5 people, maximum 10 people in a meetup, or things like icebreakers or gather round. Now that they're called gather round, and I just think that it's so easy to say yes, start small, and like when I talk about starting small, people like nod their head and like, yeah, of course, start small, that makes sense. But then everyone I speak to is like they agree with that, but they don't start small and they dream big like straight away. And I think we any community builder needs to just like, I guess, get over that or commit to starting small and seeing the value in small and seeing the conversations that you're having with people, seeing the relationships that you're building up, and like when you have one-on-one conversations, people open up massively in a way that they would never open up in even a group of 3, right? And based on those kind of things, with Orbit especially, I've just been pushing for one-on-one conversations. I've opened up my Calendly. I'm doing this community stuff, the audio conversations on Racket, and I'm just encouraging people to like reach out to me and have conversations. And it's it's a bit slow, but it's deep and it's valuable, and that also reflects like the Orbit values. It's like we're not here to necessarily like grow super fast. We want to do things well. We want to think deeply about the things we're doing, and we want to do the right things. So it aligns.
what is your focus when, first of all, what is small? Like, how many people do you consider small? And when you're in the small group still, what is your focus? What are you trying to develop in the small realm before you start to grow?
Yeah. Really, I think when you're starting small, you want to kind of, like, my goal is to kind of be such an expert or so knowledgeable about something that I don't have to do any market research. So for me, it's like speaking to people is market research, but I don't do it with a market research hat on. I do it just like as a genuine way to kind of get to know people. And I just think, like, if you go into these small things with that in mind, with a kind of very much learning focus, then you can just learn so much, and it kind of empowers you to make decisions on how to progress to the next stage. So because you've spent all that time learning about your people and having these conversations in a really kind of honest and human way, it then equips you and gives you the answers of what you need to do next, instead of like second guessing about like how you should build community. You wouldn't need to second guess, because the conversations and the people would have kind of given you the answers.
I'm gonna pop in Corey, who's got a question for you, and then Corey's also gonna be our second speaker later on. So, all right, Corey, you should be on. What you got?
Just wondering what some of your favorite examples are of communities, of groups that are doing something different, unique, interesting, that you find notable.
Okay. Well, I like what Anna Gatt, is it Gatt? Intellect is doing. I haven't attended many of her things, but I like her style, her vibe. I like how she engages people. She basically does a lot of, for those that don't know, she does a lot of meetups, like very kind of, I guess, intellectual, deep, knowledgeable. It's like people come in to talk about topics that they care about, and they have like discussions about them. And I definitely like feel like when often when I look at the list of events that she has coming up, I often feel like a bit like out of my depth, a little bit. I wouldn't say stupid, but it's like definitely like, oh my God, there's so many people in this world that are so intelligent, and they talk about all these like amazing things that I would never understand. But the fact that she brings all these kind of different people together on all these different topics, and people are like so open-minded to just come and discuss things and like exchange ideas, it just feels like such a positive, thing to do in the world, is like to open people's mind to new things, and to do it in that way. I think she's doing a great job.
Hi guys.
Hello.
Well,
Hi Rosie. Yeah, my name is Mtale. I'm all right. I'm in Zambia, Lusaka. I've been thinking of creating this scratches my own itch, and then sharing it also for others that may be going through stuff that I go through, probably to like express the stresses that they go through. So, and then what usually hits me sometimes, like there are stuff that you want to, that are pounding in your head, your heart, but you can't go on social media and post them out. People will be like, what kind of stuff is this person posting here? But then, so I have this stuff that I constantly write, not necessarily like a diary, but something like a website that I've created for myself. Then I just upload them. Then I'm been thinking, okay, I'm scratching my own itch. Probably there are others that may be going through the same issues, and they are stressed. They have issues that they probably don't want to discuss with anyone, but they can put them on this platform, and then maybe get help from others that are going through the same issue. I don't know what to think about that, Rose.
I think, 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 you know, I always say that I think most ideas can get off the ground if you care enough about them, if you're passionate enough about them. And like when I did ministry of testing, people, you know, often gave me weird looks and thinking, say, what is this? That will never work as a business kind of thing. But, you know, again, I think you also have to be realistic. It's like, you know, it's like an idea is an idea, right? It's like, yes, it could work, but there's so many factors that make ideas, either business ideas or community ideas work. So, you know, I guess like I like to cop out of these questions in a way of saying it's like it almost doesn't matter what I think. It matters what you think and what the people that you want to connect with think, and whether you can get people like participating or contributing. And that's the hard like reality of community, is like doing the hard work of sharing things. But I guess like on top of that, I would say like the world of COVID and stuff, I think people are dying to be heard, dying to like be connected more, rather than in a mass way, in a more kind of one-to-one way. So everything I'm doing with community is focused in on the small actions, because I think we're too overwhelmed with the you know, information overload and just like everybody sharing everything, and it just becomes too much to handle. So yeah, I guess like I would bear that in mind with whatever you're building. Is like, do you care enough about the idea? Do other people care enough? And where do you see it going? Is it an idea, or like is it a real vision? And I think like you don't have to have the answer straight away, but you should definitely be working towards kind of not just an idea, but a bigger vision.
Ali?
Well, hello,
Yeah.
Anthony. Hello, Rosie. Thank you so much for the session. You've touched on some great points that was really interesting to me. But one point in particular, I wanted to, you know, like double down on it to ask more. The part where you spoke about that money shouldn't be the motivation. I completely agree to that. And I've been through this, and I accidentally some sort of built my community, and that wasn't the issue. The issue was something else, is that the activity by actively engaging with the community and sharing what you know, and you know, like being generous, serving the community. I believe that this is a duty for everybody who is like have a little bit of knowledge and expertise in the matter. But the problem with that is, what if you have some other activity in your life that's pouring you money, like your work, for example, that's getting you money, and you have to sacrifice the activity that brings you money, that pays your bills, that puts the roof above your head, and to serve the community. That was really a super great challenge to me. So how do you approach that? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean it's a good question, because especially like if you're pulled by your heart, you want to do things, and you get stuck in places where you have to make money, right? And I've been on various spectrums of money and lack of money, and definitely like when I was starting out the community ministry of testing, I didn't have a lot of money, and we actually had a lot of debt, and we got ourselves into not a great position. But so like I remember that, and I remember that as a thing of, I never want to get into that position again. And it meant, you know, making sacrifices in the way that I did the community on the side for years, literally for like 4 years. That's what I did. And I never knew whether it would actually bring me money, but I kind of, you know, I felt like it would, but I felt like if I focused in on the money, that either it wouldn't work or I would lose interest, because that's me, and that's my character. Is that if I got too salesy and too businessy over it, I thought I would lose interest. So yeah, I mean it's a tough one, always a tough one. I think like every indie hacker out there wants to be full time. I definitely think there's compromises. I've made compromises now. I've made changes to my life. So like I used to be a full-time indie hacker, and then I was at Indie Hackers for 2 years contracting. I was a contractor there. And it's really tough, like managing the community at Indie Hackers and not having a side project. So that's why I started Rosie Land like as a side gig, because you know I was surrounded by people like you know, everybody around me was like starting side gigs or businesses, and I felt like I was the only one that wasn't. Obviously, that wasn't true, but that, you know, like now, like my situation now is like I have a full-time job and a side gig, and it doesn't make my life easy, but it, you know, for me, it's, you know, the choices that I make is like, but I think like as a life goal for me, I've for the past 2 or 3 years, I've kind of had this concept that I want to get to a stage that, or I want to be at a stage where I can choose what to work on, and that I can choose to quit anything that I'm working on without feeling guilty. And part of that I learned through from Ministry of Testing, where I struggled to quit because you can't just like have a business that's making a bunch of money and leave it, you know, without someone to run it. So, you know, I felt suffocated with that. So when I left Ministry of Testing, I made a promise to myself that the best place that I can be is in a position where I can walk away from anything that I want to. If, you know, just for my own well-being, my own physical or mental health, I want to be in a position where I can just say, actually, this isn't working for me. I'm gonna go. And I guess, you know, that's kind of what I did at Indie Hackers. I left because I felt like my time was up. No particularly bad reason, but, you know, I thought I want to try something new. I'd been there 2 years. I felt like I wasn't really learning much. So I decided to leave. And I had nowhere to go to after that, but I just made that decision. And I guess like being able to get to that stage is pretty powerful as an indie hacker, or as a person, to make those life choices, because it just means that you can focus in on things that you really want to do rather than focusing on things that you have to do, that you're stuck doing.
That was super helpful. I was super happy to hear you expanding on that topic, and especially that you also touched another like great points, the guilt part, because you said that you've lived the community for 4 years now, and it's been going great. I mean, for me, it's like for like 6 months now, and I'm already feeling guilty. Like every day, I'm like, oh, I'm working, but I'm not serving the community. I should be serving the community. And on the other hand, if I'm serving the community and not doing the things that brings me more money, I mean, I'll be feeling like, oh, I should be doing the things that brings me money. So it's a great dilemma. I can understand how tough it is, and thank you for, you know, like sharing this same experience with me. So that was super helpful to me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would add one more thing. Like,
yeah, sure.
If you have a community, it's like, and you want to like figure out how to make money from it, like the way that I tried to do it was not to like start charging for not to take away something and start charging for that, but just to always be adding value, and then figuring out as you get to know the community better, you're the best person there to make the decision about what to charge for. No one else will be able to tell you that, because you're the one who shows up every single day. So you're therefore the best person to decide how to make money through the business, but to do it in a way that you're adding something on top. So like when I did Ministry of Testing, I decided to make money through events. Like we had never done like in real life events. So I started doing events, and that's how we ended up making most of our money. And people couldn't complain because we hadn't done any of that before. And you know, being in real life events, you have to charge for it. So there weren't really any complaints about it. And I think when you do communities and you charge for stuff, it's quite easy to get scared about what people will think and whether they'll complain about you charging for things.
That was even more helpful, and it draws me into asking one more question. So if I can have a minute, I can ask this question, please. So you're speaking about the thing that makes you money. So here is the situation that I've been through. I've got an acquisition offer. It was a very generous one to, you know, to hand over the community to a giant, you know, company who is, you know, like the giant in the MENA region in the freelance, and also to moderate it. So I was into this fork road where I had to leave the community to be idle until I come back again and serve the community, or I should, like sell the community for that company, which can serve them, but I won't get a hand in it. So it was a really tough challenge as well. So that was making money. I could have made a lot of money by saying, yes, you can have it. And the community would have like got the benefit of them serving them. But I didn't take that path. And from what you just said, to me, I'm reconsidering this right now. And I feel like that this wasn't the right choice that I made. Sorry if I'm asking too many questions.
Yeah. No, it's all right. I think there's never a right choice, like Indie Hackers was acquired, right? And I can, and me spending like 2 years there, I can definitely see the pros of it being acquired, and I can definitely see the negatives, So it's like, I think, sometimes you just have to make the decisions, and sometimes they can be financially, beneficial, and I don't think we should necessarily feel guilty about that. And it's like, at least you're trying, right? You're trying to make the right decision. So I guess it's like a way, you have to weigh up the options. It's like, will it be good for me? Will I be able to live with this for 5 years? Which are probably like, there's probably like tie-in clauses for 5 years or something like that. And how good will it be for the community? And how well will you be able to serve the community whilst you're in there helping out? Under their terms, or not helping out even. There's a risk that maybe, that it all gets taken away from you. And when you make that decision to sell, you have to be willing to live with that. And yeah, it's tough, right? I don't know, it's tough, because like I often think about selling Ministry of Testing, and I go through days where I'm like, I just want rid of it. I just want the money. And then I have other days I say, no, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. Never will I sell it. So it's that, I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. And like, I haven't sold it. So like, even though I don't run it, I'm still stuck with it in a sense. In the sense that I'm still responsible as a business owner for many things. And that's not necessarily easy, but, it's a choice that I make. And, I guess like I try not to think about it as much these days, but I honestly think that if you just like try to make the best choices that you can in life, just accept it and move on and get to the next stage that you need to get to.
Thank you, Rosie. That it's a real roller coaster of feelings. I can totally feel that. So thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Rosie. That was really helpful, and I'll leave space for other community members to ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali. So Corey in the chat has a question. He says, there's so many things you can be doing with a community at any given time, events, meetups, podcasts. How do you know how much is too much and where to put your focus?
Good question. How much is too much? I think generally speaking, running communities is a lot of work. I think it's easy to fall into the trap of like doing more and more and thinking, oh, it's just a podcast, it'll be easy. Or it's just an article a week, it'll be easy. And then before you know it, it's like, it's all added up. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. A lot of it depends on the community. I like to focus in on how can you give value to people, and like what are people like actually asking help for. And I know that's like really kind of vague, but I think that's the only way. Is just like thinking, like really paying attention to what your community are talking about, and then trying to find solutions within your reach to serve that. And I don't think it's necessarily doing more and more content. And I think like these days that, like I touched on before, often it's about other things. So like I can see, for example, in professional communities now, it's like maybe more and more people don't want content, they just want opportunities. So they might want opportunities to either collaborate with people or get new jobs, or like move maybe if it's a professional community, they've come to your community because they want to get their first job and like change careers. All of those kind of things. It's like everyone has these needs that they're crying out for, and if you run a community, you have access to not necessarily a lot of resources, but a lot of people and a lot of connections, and like trying to figure out ways that you can help each other out or tap into new things as well. I think every community should always be looking to innovate and move forward and move with the world, especially in the COVID world. So yeah, it's a bit of a, I don't know if that actually helps, but yeah, communities get easily overwhelming.
Yeah. Do what's best for your community, and maybe there's no way around just trying to do it all.
Even I would say like product ideas, like there's no reason why you can't launch products within communities as well. But so it depends, right?
Sorry. Just when I'm getting on video, my mom called me. I'm like, the odds, right? So nice to meet you, Rosie. I love everything you do with community. Anthony, thank you for. I think my question is a little bit along the line of what Ali asked, but I guess our challenge is that we have a two-sided business where it's B2B, and we also have a community. And I find it difficult sometimes because the B2B is what generates revenue, but I want to make sure that our community feels supported and feels valued. So I'm trying to, someone yesterday, they were like, you have to choose which of them are you going to pay attention to and really, so it's kind of stuck because I'm stuck because I feel like, again, I don't charge our community for anything because they come to us for resources. But at the same time, if I'm not nurturing the businesses that help pay our bills and generate revenue, yeah. So do you have any advice on if you're working on both sides, like if you have sponsors or anything like that? How do you make sure you're still building your community and keeping it, keeping the intention and keeping it authentic, that as how you built it without putting into.
So you do events, right? And then you have, what's the B2B aspect of it?
So the companies will either pay for sponsorship for the events or for recruiting for that. So that's the one side that I do, but we're also, thank you, Anthony. We're also like, we have a good community, and I want to make sure that I'm giving equal time to both.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it kind of feels like it's still one and the same. It's like you're still just trying to serve this community, but the business, you're trying to find ways for businesses to support you, right? And I guess like with things like hackathons and things like that, they're pretty difficult to get off the ground, and it's like, I guess like I don't know, Alpha, right? So Alpha like have this like pretty big community, and I was curious to see how they run their things, and they make money through recruitment, and they charge companies like an annual membership fee or something, and they will help them recruit people. But yeah, I don't know. It's tough. It's a tough one. I'm trying to think like Ministry of Testing. Like we did events, and like we charge for events, and we would get sponsors on board. And for me, it's just like it's part of the whole ecosystem of the community. Yeah, I mean, I guess like, because I know I need to get back to you on a DM. Actually, I just remembered, but I'm trying to think of like what would trigger companies to support you easily without like selling out? I mean, is it the selling out aspect that worries you, like having to, like, you know, make your events feel too salesy or sponsory, if that even makes sense?
Yeah, I think what I want to do is make sure that whoever responds really does care about the community. I social impact than sales, right? And even though I know, but I'm all about if we're not standing, we're kind of letting down our community. So I'm trying to do the best to bring in the right companies without, like you said, selling out. But it's hard because it's always the ones that have the money that and are willing to do the stuff, but don't have the integrity that won't work with you.
Yeah, it's tough, right? And like if you do get the support from bigger companies, often it's not sustainable. So they might support you for one event or 1 year, but then after that, they're quite easily just drop spending money with you. So you know, I definitely like get that aspect of it. You know, I don't have good answers for you. It's a model that I've thought about a lot over the years. Is that how can you fix that? You know, so I've got like Indie Woman, for example, and sometimes I think like I just do that for free. We don't do like events. I mean, we do like online meetup, accountability meetups, but not like you know, hackathons or conferences. So I keep it quite low key. But often I think about, well, if I was to try to make money from Indie Woman, which maybe one day I will, how would I go about that? And I have no clue. But I guess like one of the ideas that I think might work is to approach lots of small companies and get like small subscriptions on an annual basis to make it like more sustainable. So getting a company to support you for $100, $200 a year, for perhaps not a lot of commitment in return, but maybe like a directory listing or something to show that they're committed. And that small commitment means that they can be committed to you and support you, but it also means that they can commit themselves to other good causes. You know, they can spread their budget, so to speak. And like when I think of like Orbit and like as the, you know, a growing startup and like budgets that I have available to sponsor, that I can definitely like sponsor things smaller scale without any kind of, you know, I can just go ahead and do it. As I sponsored like Indie Worldwide, and I just go ahead and do it and put it on my card, my company card. But if it gets into the high amounts, it becomes more of a you know, hassle, and it becomes something that we would consider every time that we have to do it. So, you know, perhaps like thinking of like people who work at companies that have budgets, like smaller budgets, but who, you know, who don't think about, you know, where that smaller budget wouldn't make much of a difference, and they could just keep repaying that amount every month or every year or something.
Yeah, I haven't think about that because you're always, you know, thinking about the ones with the large budget, but that makes sense because they're able to, you know, contribute without having to break the bank or go out over budget. So that's a good idea. Thank you. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, and companies say they don't always have the time to contribute, right? So it's like sometimes I think like events offer too much. It's say you can do this and you can do that, and you can have this stand and have free tickets, but the reality is like quite often people don't have the time for all of that to attend to it. So it almost becomes overwhelming on their side to have to deal with that and manage that and think about all the other events that they might want to support as well.
Thank you, Anthony.
No problem.
Thank you, Marie. All right, final question for us from the chat is coming from Simon Daly. He started a community about 5 weeks ago, and he's already starting to feel all the pressure of trying to keep adding value to the community. So his question is, what are some early indicators that you're on the right path? and what might be some indicators that maybe it's not working out and you should find something else?
I would ask, let's say, when you say you started a community, did you do anything before you started the community, before you decided to start the community? So I would question that. A lot from the angle of, I believe that before you start a community, you should make sure you do the research and you understand the people that you're serving, and you know the kind of things that they might like to see happen. And yeah, I mean, I guess like it's hard to answer if I don't really know what the community is about. But I've definitely seen like a lot of people, like they jump in and they start a community and then they don't know what to do next. And like the reason that I recommend people like take things slowly and do research is because from any conversations that they end up having with people, the conversations that they have will tend to lead to what they need to do next. And maybe that doesn't help right now, but yeah, I mean, I guess on top of that, I would say, like pace yourself, and also like consider like what you might think is valuable to people might not be what is valuable to the community. So you might think like having a really active forum is valuable with a lot of engagement, but maybe people don't want that. And I think it's just important to think about that before giving yourself a hard time. And I think as community builders, it's really easy to give ourselves a hard time about things. But stick with it, because no community is built in 5 weeks. Every successful community you see now, it's taken a long time to build. And I know Indie Worldwide has been around for a couple of years now. I think that's a good example that this is being consistent, and Anthony's been growing on it month after month, very consistently.
Yeah, I can't really get around talking to your users, whether it's a community or a SaaS startup or anything else. Rosie, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate your time here, especially during launch day of all days. So don't forget to go over on Product Hunt, show some love, and I hope we get you back soon.
Very much, and for anyone who is doing community, just like stick with it for the long term. It's a long game.